lecture of the manifesto. Well, thank you very much. We have started just with the part of the signatures because Guillermo doesn't have much time with us. Thanks a lot for coming to this presentation. This is in fact the first activity of the Relaunch Action Committee for the United States of Europe. As you may know, the Action Committee for the United States of Europe was initiated in the late 1950s by Jean Monnet after he left his role as president of the High Authority. He developed a network of key people in very important places, basically, to continue moving forward the project of European integration from the side of civil society, after having been in the institutions. And the committee had a very strong activity in the 1960s up to the 1970s, and after he died, basically the Action Committee well, disappeared, in fact, or became inactive. We thought, those that are here, particularly myself representing the Union of European Federalists, Sandra Gozzi representing the Spinelli Group, which is the Federalist intergroup of MEPs in the European Parliament, Cristel Sabal, President of the Young European Federalists, and also the association Jean Monnet, that at this moment that we live in Europe, which is so critical, we needed to relaunch the committee. Why? Well, not out of symbolism, or not only, or not out of nostalgia, certainly not out of nostalgia, but with the idea that we have, of course, a number of tools to advance our project of a more federal Europe. We have the European Movement International, which is the body, the umbrella organization of pro-European associations, so the purely grassroots civil society. Also, this is the same for UEF and JEF. The Spinelli Group represents the parliamentarians, but we thought it was worthwhile to add to this toolbox also this body which will group the personalities, those in the fields of arts, culture, journalism, former high-profile politicians that are not in the institutions at the moment, intellectuals, writers that can also join us in this battle, which it has never been an easy one. We're very glad that the Association Jean Monnet was in agreement with us. They were also positive about the relaunching of the Action Committee, and this is why we have partnered with them. You see it in the document that it has been distributed. And we had a first meeting with the Jean Monnet Association, JEF, and the other partners on the 18th of January, because the 18th of January was in fact the 68th anniversary of the first public meeting of the Action Committee. And what we are doing today is, in a way, the first activity of this reactivated Action Committee with a manifesto, which is our contribution 1 month before the elections, and on the occasion of the 9th of May. Of course, we are advancing it by a couple of days, but this was the idea. And this manifesto has 3 very concrete ideas. I'm not going, maybe the others now focused on the context, on the geopolitical or historical context, but on the concrete steps that we need to take to advance this project of the European Federation. So first of all, we are calling for a high participation in these elections, because these are crucial elections. We know that in many member states, the Eurosceptic and Europhobic far right is increasing. And certainly, as pro-Europeans, we oppose giving the house keys to those that want to tear it down. So it is very important that citizens participate, and as a second point, they support the pro-European political parties, no matter the ideology, because the important thing is that we preserve a pro-European majority in the next parliament. Third, we call the European political parties to develop open European debate at the time of these elections. Unfortunately, the debates are excessively national in these elections, and we know we have a few ideas from a constitutional point of view to improve that situation that unfortunately will not be in place for this election, which are the transnational lists to be tabled by European political parties, but we nonetheless remember the parties of the obligation to develop this pan-European debate. And then we have two concrete demands for the institutions. The European Council, we remind them that they have to tackle the proposal by European Parliament regarding the federal reform of the treaties. The European Parliament, its plenary, approved this proposal last November in an effort led by Guy Verhofstadt, which is here. He was the executive rapporteur of this report. And this officially activated the procedure to reform the treaties. And now the European Council has the obligation to put this item in their agenda and to take an action about it. And second, we, and by the way, a number of European Council meetings have happened since December, when the Spanish presidency of the Council transmitted the file, and nothing has happened. And second, we also called the European political parties, and particularly the next parliamentary groups of the European Parliament, to put a condition for the election of the new president of the Commission and the next Commission as a whole, which is to say that if they want the support of the European Parliament, they have to support, as a Commission, as European Commission, our project of reform of the treaties. This is very important because, as you know, the Commission issued a communication more or less about the relationship between enlargement and deepening, and I think we all agree here in this table, this was quite disappointing because there was no clear indication of interest or support about the Parliament's initiative. Article 48 of the treaty says that the Commission is consulted in the procedure of the reform of the treaties. So what we are asking the European political parties is that they should say to the next president, candidate for president of the Commission, if you want our support, you have also to support the Parliament in its proposal. So this is in a nutshell what we are proposing here, which I think it's very important. And now happy to give the floor. Guy, you want to say something before you go?
Yeah, simply to reiterate what you said. I think that the main message of today of the Action Committee is to say to the new pro-European majority that will be hopefully formed after the election, that can only be given green light to a Commission President or to a Commission if there is also a clear commitment to change the treaty in parallel with the whole enlargement process. And it's good that this is said before the election and not only afterwards, and because that gives a possibility to have a clear commitment, assurance that was lacking in the last period. There was an agreement in the last period to have the conference as the start for such a process, I think we are a step further now, and we need now to have a commitment on the treaty revision itself. And I don't think that's necessary to start to explain why a treaty revision is necessary. There is enough papers, and enough reports, and enough op-eds that have been published about that. But it's clear that this will become one of the major battlegrounds, I would say. Hopefully during the election campaign now, and certainly after the election campaign when we try to establish majority once and have then an agreement on who can become president of the Commission and what majority will support that president. Well, I think that's the main message of today. I think it will be also wise and good that the Action Committee, maybe together with EMI, is organizing in Strasbourg in the first meeting in July. It is, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not candidate anymore to represent myself, so I'm a little bit puzzled with the dates of the Parliament, but that is in July. It will be good that we organize there for all the elected MEPs. Not all have to come naturally, so not the nationalists have not to come, but for all MEPs to present this to them in July, because that could give the possibility to re-establish what was missing since 15 years now, an interparliamentary group of pro-European Federalist MEPs that has always existed in the past. And at a certain moment, there were not enough signatures anymore and that happened 15 years ago. So I was never a member of an interparliamentary group, and will never be a member of such an interparliamentary group. And that's the reason why we created the Spinelli Group as a network outside, I would say, the normal interparliamentary groups that existed. But I think that the Action Committee and EMI could easily try to do an attempt in July to inform, first of all, all new members. There will be a lot of new members of the goal of the committee, and secondly to see if we can raise the, I don't know how many that there are necessary, more than 110 or something like that, signatures for forming an interparliamentary group. There are interparliamentary groups on almost every topic in the Parliament. It will be good that after 15 years we are capable again to have such a group in place.
Thank you very much, Guy. And it is true that we can make the Spinelli Group an official intergroup, and we tried at the beginning of the last term. You also need, I think, support from the political groups themselves. So I think it's a double thing, signature, but also support of political groups. And indeed, I'm very happy about what you are proposing, an action. I think it's the 16th or 15th of July, at the beginning of the new term. 16th of July.
16, yeah.
And to be present there at the beginning of the term. And also, I think it's very exciting, the possibility to partner with EMI, indeed, from the side of the Action Committee. Now I give the floor to Christelle Saval on the name of JEF, Young European Federalists.
From 6 to 9 of June, vote. That's the appeal. But vote for which Europe? For a Europe that acts, a Europe that protects. A Europe that acts, it means a Europe that is able to face the challenges of today, the challenges of tomorrow, and to be honest, the challenges of yesterday that we didn't fully cover. Ukraine, of course, climate crisis, and people understand this. Like the Eurobarometer are quite good about people understanding finally the importance of the European Parliament, the importance of the European Union. But now it's time to act and vote. a Europe that protects. We saw with COVID that it was ad hoc because the EU doesn't have the right competence. So that's why we need the federal union. We need it now, and we need to do that. We need to reform the treaties, and that's what we explained at the beginning: the importance of following up this process, because there's a need to do that in parallel to enlargement. Because we need to be credible on the side of the European Union. Because for now, we say maybe later, and there's more energy in enlargement, and that's good. But to be credible, we also need to be able, when countries are finally ready, and we help them to say, yeah, well, we're ready ourselves. And so reforms need to be in parallel in the countries that will join the EU, and also in our own house. So it's long overdue because of the conference on the future of Europe. We wrote together with UEF and these letters to try to push this to the agenda, and I'm very happy that we have this common exercise together on this today. The committee, it's very important. We're closer to the United States of Europe than we were when Jean Monnet was having the committee, and that's good. But there's still so much to do. And the committee is relevant today because we have our own organization or association, and of course we're a grassroots movement. There are plenty of thousands of people following this in Europe, but we need more. We need really in the opinions, people that are trusted, people that are also more famous than us to say the same things, maybe with different languages, to try to push this, because Federal Europe is a popular project. When you discuss with people, young people, with this massive consultation in JEF across Europe, people want a better Europe, a Europe more suited to the problems of today. So we also need to explain federalism to them. So I really want this to be an appeal for other people to join. I hope to see a long list of signatures after the ones we did today. And yeah, really thank you, Domenec, for organizing this today. It's very important we do something meaningful before 9th of May, even though other things are prepared on all of our association side. And yeah, so the final appeal is vote for Europe, but vote for Europe of hope, a Europe, an enlarged federal union.
Thank you very much, Christelle, for your commitment and support for this initiative. It's very important to have such an important, how many volunteers do you have?
10,000.
10,000 volunteers across Europe, young, all of them. So
yeah.
It's very important to have you with us. Sandro, a dear friend, colleague of the European Parliament and chair of the Spinelli Group.
Thank you, Domenec, and thank you all. I'm really very glad to be here to launch this action committee, because we need to act and we need more union. So I think that the action committee is the right answer to what we need to do. We need to act because we live in extraordinary times, and we cannot pretend that everything can be solved, can be fixed, can be reached without a deep reform of the union. And there are many around here in town and around the continent, they pretend that we can do it, we can enlarge Ukraine, build up a military power, face the Chinese aggression without embracing a federal reform and a constitutional reform of the union. So we say down the mask and stop with hypocrisy, and this is also a message that we send out today, because we are all very committed to Europeanized elections, which are too national, and they could turn into too nationalistic elections. And it is clear that this is a high risk for Europe, but it's also a huge opportunity. The fact that more and more it is clearer, and it is going to become even clearer, what Arturo Spinelli had already written during the Second World War, that the real cleavage in European politics will be between nationalists and federalists. That is going to be even a clearer reality in the new parliament. So we have to look at the harsh reality if we want to provide the right answer. And this is absolutely necessary to commit the woman or the man who will be the new president of the commission, and I would say also the college, the commissioner, the whole commission, to commit them to take on our proposal for treaty revision, because it is clear that we need to turn the next term into a constitutional term, and we do not have to choose between unification of the continent and deep reform of the union. We have to do it in parallel. But this means treaty revision, a convention. I don't see why in the next term we cannot have in the parliament, the council, to take the important and urgent decisions. Look at Ukraine, look at Israel, and in parallel, a convention can do the job and can work and can take the necessary time, 3-4 years even, if it's necessary, to prepare the union for the new challenge. And this is why I think that this action committee, and I thanks again Domenec for the idea, is absolutely necessary. We will try to build up, as Guy Verhofstadt has just proposed, a formal intergroup in the new parliament, but in any case, be reassured that the Spinelli Group will be there to do the job if we don't manage to do what is absolutely necessary, that build up a union between the federalists without, the not ashamed federalists and the ashamed federalists. Because in this parliament there are some people who have the courage to say, I am a federalist. There are other people who are federalists, but they don't say it. They are going to help. For us, it's important to do. Then if they take the courage also to say, when they talk about a sovereign democratic Europe, transnational list, une puissance européenne, if they add also the word federal, we would be happier. But what is important is to gather around our project all those who want a deep reform of the union, and this is our strong commitment today. And thank you very much for this initiative.
Thank you, Sandra. I agree with you. Maybe some MEPs have to live out of the closet, no, when it comes to federalism, and I'm very confident that in the next parliament you will be there and you will be continue to move forward this Spinelli Group. And now I like to welcome into our group Liven Tailly, who is the Vice President of the Association Jean Monnet. As I said at the beginning, we are very happy that we are partnering with Association Jean Monnet, because obviously we couldn't reactivate the action committee without you, obviously, because you are the ones that carry forward the legacy of Jean Monnet. And it is also very important because this allows us to close a bit of a family issue, if I can put it that way, because it was, then I will give you the floor so you can also say what you think. But there has been this idea, no, of kind of a clash between Spinelli and Monnet, no, in terms of the federalists and the functionalists, right? But what is very interesting is if you go to if you read the Schuman Declaration that we will be celebrating in 2 days, it is very clear that yes, the method at the time was different, because Spinelli had imagined a constituent assembly to bring about the federation. He thought the European nation states will not be able to reconstruct and to affirm the absolute sovereignty after the war, and it didn't play out that way. And Monnet and Schuman had the genius and the creativity to say, okay, let's start with a concrete project. And this is why the Schuman Declaration says Europe will not be done at once, no? But with the concrete realizations. And this was, I think, a great intuition. But if you also pay a close look to the Schuman Declaration, says twice European Federation. Says the European and the coal and steel community is the first step for a European Federation. So the goal was exactly the same. At the time there was a difference in method. And I think this difference in method is not relevant today, because of course we are applying the two methods at the same time. The concrete realizations are what Guy, Sandra, and myself have been doing alongside the others. Whenever we approve the regulations and the directives, these are the concrete realizations, because all of them are, of course, uniting Europe, because it's more things that we are doing in common, right? But at the same time, of course, with the several reforms of the treaties, since the Single European Act to the Lisbon Treaty, those have been constitutional reforms, ensemble reforms. So, of course, we need to deploy the two methodologies. And this is why, for me, it's very important that we are relaunching this action committee alongside the Jean Monnet Association, with this understanding that we share the same vision, and these different methodologies are only enriching our toolbox to bring about the same goal. So please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, well, indeed, representing the Association Jean Monnet, the Jean Monnet Association, I'll give a short introduction on what exactly is this association, where she comes from. She was launched shortly after the death of Jean Monnet by former staff, family and friends, among whom you'll find on our official paper a lot of names that are have also their names in the history books. To name only Helmut Schmidt, for instance, Giscard d'Estaing, all those. I personally also like very much that with the association Mario Suarez worked a lot, who will be celebrated this year, also his centenary. But yes, well, you refer to the family issue. I would lay that down because the reality, this is more an issue that was brought up by, well, political scientists as myself, and the people of around these two, I would say. The reality is that they had tough discussions, but estimated each other very much. That's the first thing. And well, when you refer to functionalists, that's something which is indeed very often brought up, but I absolutely don't agree with that kind of qualification. Monnet was what you could call a political entrepreneur, and to understand him, it's better to go to his origin in the business of cognac, the banking, and indeed, he was surrounded by a lot of people you can absolutely see as functionalists. In that sense, what he did is often can be qualified if scholars are studying it as functionalists. But the reality was really on the field and making it happen by short. The Schuman Declaration is very short, in fact, but it was a work of, as it was always, as part of the Monnet, the way of his methodology, his personal methodology, which has not to be confounded, as in the time when I studied, I think my neighbor as well, it was often confounded with the méthode communautaire, which is not the case. There has to be a distinction between the two. Not that being said, a lot of the méthode communautaire, of course, goes back to what Monnet put into his into the institution, his practical work. Now, you refer, so the work was always very simple. Before coming to the text, there were at least 20, 30, 40 versions before, and it was an interaction with different people, and also most important, also for instance with his chauffeur and his wife, because he wanted that people who are not following daily basis politics or so, that they understood it. That's something which honestly could be a lesson for several of the officials today. Now, they referred in the manifesto, which we are happy to support, to the Jean Monnet committee. There has been in fact 2 committees, one during his lifetime, one afterwards, and this could be the 3rd one. I think personally I'm very much in favor of it. Now, he launched the committee in 1955 when leaving the Haute Authority, the predecessor of what is today the Commission. And he, well, first of all, he financed it with his personal money. Someday he took money, but it was his personal money, which was not very beloved by his family, understandably, because it was very expensive. In which he gathered politicians of high level as he could, because one of his part of his method, when lobbyists read his memoirs, and I invite you all to read them because they are still very easily available, at least in English, French, but also in other languages like Swedish and so on, and even Chinese, is that, his practical method, and just he gathered people of whom he knew that they had leverage in their country as party leader, as foreign minister, prime minister, and so on, so that they could change the minds of the people in the different governments. He looked at those who were hesitating, those who are, and brought them together, and they lobbied with this. In fact, it's the first kind of lobby group. So that was very successful. Interesting is that, though, for this committee, out of his experience from before, notably also around the time of the launch of the SECA, that it was mostly composed of politicians and of trade unions, people from trade unions, and not really of business leaders or entrepreneurs. But nevertheless, this work done by the Action Committee, of which all documents, and Jean Monnet founded himself the Jean Monnet Foundation, of which which is located in Switzerland, the Jean Monnet Foundation, and which has in fact the oldest documents concerning the launch of what is today the European Union, the preparation of the Schuman Declaration and so on, including all his personal papers, the ones also from Schuman, and from several others who gave it to the foundation, which is situated in Lausanne at the university, and the papers are in an atomic cellar under the ground. Very impressive to visit. Anyway, that's for everything that is papers. Now, for everything what is to understand Monnet and how he worked, how, for instance, walking was important, therefore you have to go to the house, and the association is very particularly linked to the house. The association managed to make that it became a property of all Europeans, because it was bought by the parliament. It's a property of the parliament. In fact, the first property of the parliament bought 42 years ago. Under the former Secretary General Klaus Well, it was developed as very much. The association managed it for the parliament for over 30 years, but it became too heavy, because there is now really a big conference room, a small conference room, even a guest house. It's very impressive, and it's the seat of the Monnet Academy, and even are received behind in informal way several high personalities, or negotiations to, in the spirit of Monnet, I would say, to help people find each other and understand better what is the European Union about. So that's a bit the picture. I mentioned also a second committee, and that's, I think, personally, I find this very important. It's not known at all, because he was very discreet, the one who did it. It was the one who also was the secretary of the most important figure beside Monnet in the committee to organize everything. And that was Max Koonstam. Max Koonstam is mostly known to Dutch people, because also his father was important, and his son and grandson are also known in the Netherlands. Max Koonstam, in fact, gathered the second committee, which was very important for Jacques Delors. Pascal Lamy repeated it some time ago again here in Brussels at a meeting. And this second committee was very influential on how to launch the euro, for instance. So, and a lot of things. There were quite some gathering between these two men. Koonstam was already in his 80s. I met him several times in his 90s. He was an incredible personality. But to come back to this, well, we are very happy that there is an idea to take inspiration from what happened. And I'm very confident that the bridges can be made. Because Monnet can't be defined as a federalist in the sense of the federalist movement. That I have a past as a former president of the Belgian section of the JEF I know a lot. I was well befriended with one of the founders of the UF, Ramos. No, but around him there were a lot of personalities who made the bridge, especially the juridical side. Gaucher, a lawyer who also developed the chamber of the International Chamber of when businesses and authorities have a problem, international arbitration court. It was very important in that sense also. But I think there is a lot, and we should remind that behind Monnet there was always a staff, there was always a people, and it was one of his richness that he could mobilize a lot of people. And in that sense it remains interesting to have access to read even more today than before, because there is also, when we speak about today about problems with Ukraine and so on, Poland, he was also very important for all those countries in the Central Europe. Also, he launched in the First World War something which is you could see as a predecessor of what is today the NATO. That his life of his many lives he got, switching between the private and the public sector, is even more than 10 or 15 years ago a source of inspiration, and his memoirs remains for me a manual to use practically, because it's not like with the goal, it's not the big literature, it's practical.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much for these insights. I have to admit, and for your support as I was saying thanks a lot for your support as Association Jean Monnet to this endeavor, and thanks for your insights. I have to say, well, I just learned that Sandro is also a member of the board of the foundation. We are indeed ready to also include the foundation in this partnership by all means. Just we didn't have enough time to do it yet, but we were informed by Martí Grau, who is the director of the house. And the house, of course, is Martí has said they are very happy to host us whenever. Maybe if we do an annual gathering, no, of the committee, we will do it there.
You can dine at the table as the presidents when they are elected of the council of the parliament, on invitation of the president of the parliament, and the commission are dining at the table of Monnet, a small table, without their chefs.
That's good to know, because
you can even
we're not very.
There is very good cognac.
Very good cognac, yes, of course. And it's good that the Sherpas are not invited, because Sandro, you always say that we don't like Sherpocracy or Sherpacracy. But the existence of the second committee, I was not aware. So this is a very important piece of information, and in a way also comforts that what we're doing is really following in the footsteps of these big attempts. And at this moment in Europe, I think we can make this contribution with this, as you say, the personal methodology of Jean Monnet, no? And indeed, you were not at the beginning of the presentation, but I explained very well, or I tried to explain precisely that we are UEF, we are a grassroots organization. Spinelli Group is a group of the parliamentarians, but we also want to develop this network of influential people in important places, which is what he did. Huh? So this is why we want to launch the committee, precisely to have this additional tool at our disposal, no? To strengthen European integration. So thanks again to all of you for having come, Christelle, Sandro had to leave, and Olivier and Leven for having been here, all of you for your presence, and we will now start gathering as a first step signatures, of course, of citizens, but also of the prospective members of the new committee, and then we will organize, as Guy Verhofstadt already proposed. Of course, you cannot have Guy Verhofstadt in the table and not launch a concrete proposal to meet on the 15th of July, the beginning of the new term in Strasbourg. Since I'm not running for re-election, I was not thinking so much about the beginning of the next term, but now Guy Verhofstadt had given me a very good motive to be there with all of you. So thanks again, and we meet very soon in Strasbourg.
Thank you.